Hi folks, James Upham here at Resurgo Place, and we're here in the Learning Center. And I wanted to show you this painting. So if you come into Resurgo Place and you watch, there's a video that comes up and you can watch this whole long thing. And for just a split couple of seconds, you'll see this painting. This painting is one of the neatest things I've ever run into. And one of the reasons it's so neat is it looks so incredibly boring. I mean, if you look at it and you're just like, yeah, that's thrilling. I'm really enjoying how flat and absolutely nothing's going on in this. This is terrific. There's actually an incredible story that goes along with this. First of all, to get you some context, over here, this is Fort Lawrence in what's now Nova Scotia. Over here, you can just make out that's Fort Beausejour in what's now New Brunswick. This is the Mississauga River, which is now the border between the two provinces. You can just barely make out over here the steeple of a church in the Acadian community of Beaubassin. This is April of 1755, so the 7 Years' War is about to start, and everything that comes after that is about to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. The war is just barely beginning, and at this point, this river is the dividing line between what is nominally English territory and French territory. The other thing that's going on here is, you might see these little guys scooting around in the mud over here. So what's happening is, the English garrison here at Fort Lawrence has been, this is April, right? So there hasn't been a supply ship in months. There's still ice going down the river. They're running low on food, and these are their cows. So the garrison woke up one morning, had to look out, and realized that the cows had decided that the grass is greener on the other side, and the cattle effectively defected. So they swam over here into French territory and were eating their way towards Fort Beausejour. So all these soldiers are standing around looking at their boots because nobody really wants to go over there and get shot at to get some cows. And that's when one of the guys that was there did something, as the kids say these days, absolutely epic. So a little backstory on the guy that's about to show up here. His name's Brook Watson. Brook Watson was orphaned by the age of 12 in London. By the age of 13, he'd crossed the Atlantic and was living with family he'd never met before in Boston. He seems to have landed on his feet somewhat because what we now know is, or what we know next, is that he became a shipping agent. And we know that because at the age of 16, working as a shipping agent, while in Havana, he decided to take a swim and got his leg bitten off by a shark. So things are not going great for Brook Watson. He returns to Boston to see his family to convalesce and heal. They've gone broke. So this is the story of Brook Watson to date, is things are just not really going quite as well as you might, kind of want them to go. Anyway, somehow or another, he winds up as the aide-de-camp for a little fellow by the name of Robert Moncton. At this point, a colonel, you've probably heard of him. I'm standing in the city named after him. Moncton and his men need those cows, and nobody's willing to go over there except Brook. So Watson says, okay guys, if none of you guys are going to go over there and do something about this, I'm going to go do something about this. He walks down to the river, strips completely naked, starts like slithering down into the river, but his peg leg keeps sinking down to the mud, so he takes off his prosthetic leg, sticks it under his arm, swims across the river, which still has ice in it, slithers up the other side, still completely nude, covered in mud, puts his leg back on, and goes running after the cattle. Now, he manages to round most of them back up and drive them back across the river, but he notices that there's about a dozen that are still heading toward Fort Beau. So he goes trucking off after those guys when all of a sudden he notices a contingent of French soldiers coming out of the fort. And you got to, just in context, the French army was one of the best in the world at that point, and also he's completely nude, filthy, and he's only got one leg. So he figures this is the end of things. This is going to be curtains. This is the end of Brook Watson. This is it. The French had been watching the entire thing and were so impressed with him that they brought him back to the fort, cleaned him up, gave him some clothes, fed him, and brought him back to Fort Lawrence. And the cool thing about this is the moment where everything turns around for Brook Watson. By the end of his career, he was a baron. He was a director of the Bank of England. He was the first one-legged Lord Mayor of London. The guy's story is incredible, and it all happened here. And we know that he knew that this was an important point for him because this was his. He had this commission. This was his painting. This is the moment. Actually, you can't see it here, but if you see the original's hanging in the New Brunswick Museum. It's only about that big. It's a tiny little painting. But if you get right in and look real close right here, you will see a tiny little naked guy going, yeah! And that's Brook Watson, folks.